Okay guys, we're going to do a bunch of word problems here. The first one, in 2008 the US imported 11.5 million barrels of crude oil per day. Of this, 4.4 million came from North America. What percentage of crude oil imports came from North America? This is really the easiest type of problem. Basically what they're doing is they're giving you two numbers, 4.4 and 11.5, and they're asking you what percentage of 11.5 is 4.4. So let's translate that into a much shorter word problem. There it is. What percentage of 11.5 is 4.4? We can now translate this into our symbols. What percentage of 11.5 is 4.4? Now it becomes a simple division problem. We're solving for x. All we have to do is do 4.4 divided by 11.5. So it's good to know how to do these types of division problems on paper, but if we just type it into our calculator really fast, we get x% is 0.3826 and so on. That's actually an approximation because we took a bunch of decimal places off, so you would use a little squiggly equals approximation sign. Now to get x by itself, all you have to do is say, well, what percentage is that? 0.3826. It's actually 38.26%. And that's the answer. 38.26% of crude oil imports came from North America. So close to 40% of our crude oil actually came from Canada or Mexico in 2008. Let's try another problem. In a study of 500 pregnant women with poor diets, only 9% had babies with good health. How many women in this study had babies with good health? So the goal here again is to get this sort of more complicated sentence down to a much simpler sentence that we can solve using mathematics. See if you can come up with that simpler sentence. Okay, if you think about it for a little while, really what they're asking is, what is 9% of 500? So now this becomes a much simpler problem. We can translate this into mathematics. What is x is equals 9% of is times 500. Of course, 9% can be written as a decimal, 0.09. So the answer that we're looking for is pretty simple. It's just 0.09 times 500. Of course, the units on that are babies. 45 babies out of the 500 pregnant women with poor diets had babies with good health. Let's do another one. This one might seem simple, but it's actually much more complicated. Think about it for a little while and see if you can come up with an answer. So probably the most common error here is to take 54.11 and multiply that by 0.07 to figure out what 7% of $54.11 is. The reason that this doesn't actually work is because the 7% tax rate was not assessed on the 54.11. The 7% tax rate is actually just 7% of what the total cost of the food and drink is. So this is a more complicated problem than just this right here. Let's first define our variable. Call it x. So what we're looking for is the cost of just the food and the drink before tax on the bill. So I'm going to call x the cost of the food and drink. Now how do they come up with the final number of $54.11? Well, what they do is they take the cost of your food and drink and they add on 7% of that total. Well, 7% of that cost of the food and drink is another 0.07x. All of that is going to add up to $54.11. So if we're going to label what these two pieces are, we have the cost of the food and drink, that's x. We named that x. We have the cost of tax, and that's 7% of the cost of food and drink. Add those two things together and you should get your total bill. So the question is, how do we solve for x now? Well, we have an x in each one of these two terms. This first x is a 1x. The second term is a 0.07x. So you can actually combine these two terms together by adding 1 plus 0.07. That's going to give you 1.07x. The right-hand side hasn't changed. It's 54.11. Now figuring out what x is just a division problem. X equals 54.11 divided by 1.07. Type that into your calculator. And I'm getting that x, the original cost of our food and drink, is $50.57. Let's try one more problem. Fruit Straws cereal advertises 50% more fiber than its main competitor. Fruit Straws has 3 grams of fiber. How much fiber does its competitor have? This is going to be similar to the last problem in its difficulty. So again, it's important to write down what you need to figure out and call it x. Whatever the unknown is, that's going to be your variable. So the question is, how much fiber does its competitor have? So I'm going to call x the amount of fiber in the competitor cereal. Okay, now we have to think about this. Our Fruit Straws cereal, which has 3 grams of fiber per serving, has 50% more fiber than x. So what does that mean? That means we're starting with x grams of fiber and we're adding on 50% more than x. So how do we do that? We add in 0.5x. That's 50% of x. All of this is going to add up to 3 grams of fiber. That's the amount of fiber in our Fruit Straws cereal. So what we've done here, if we label our pieces, we've written down that the fiber in the competitor plus 50% more fiber is going to add up to 3 grams. So how do we solve for x? X plus 0.5x. This is another one of those types of problems. X is just 1x plus 0.5x. Combine those two and you get 1.5x is 3. So it becomes a division problem. X is 3 divided by 1.5. And the answer here, if you do the division, it's just going to be 2 grams. So the competitor cereal had 2 grams of fiber. The Fruit Straws cereal had 3 grams of fiber, and that is actually a true statement. The Fruit Straws cereal does have 50% more fiber than its main competitor, though it's really not very impressive. Okay, it's that time again, video quiz. The incredibly fake candy bar Chocolicious advertises 30% less sugar than its competitor. Chocolicious has 20 grams of sugar. How much sugar does its competitor have? Alright, good luck.